The following ship is provided by Wargaming for testing and previewing purposes. As such, all information regarding this ship is subject to change. That being said, I present to you the USS Enterprise. The Enterprise is a Tier 8 Yorktown-class carrier circa 1944. She has 51,400 hit points and has an aircraft complement of 96 planes. Her carrier air group consists of 3 aircraft roles, breaking down into 2 controllable flight groups per role or divisions termed by the U.S. Navy. First up is the Grumman F6F5 Hellcat, taking the fighter role. These Hellcat variants are the same aircraft found on the upgraded USS Ranger. This aircraft type breaks down into 2 controllable divisions consisting of 5 to 6 aircraft sections, depending upon air superiority skill. Second is the Grumman TBF Avenger, which takes the torpedo bomber role. These aircraft are the same as those on the upgraded Ranger, with 2 controllable divisions. They only break down into sections of 5 aircraft. Avengers have a wide W-shaped torpedo spread pattern. As such, it is difficult to land multiple hits. Third is the Douglas SBD-5 Dauntless, taking the role of the dive bomber. Again, similar to the upgraded Ranger, this aircraft type also comes in 2 controllable divisions, being able to have section breakdowns of 5 to 6 aircraft per division given the air superiority skill. They carry AP or HE bombs, giving you the option to do massive damage to battleships or the ability to fight destroyers and cruisers with HE, as well as damage over time. For armaments, the Enterprise has 8x1 127mm Mark 24, or 5-inch guns as we commonly know them. These guns are set up in dual-purpose engagements for both sea and air. This arrangement is set up on the flanks of the ship, and while she lacks the 4x2 127mm turreted setup that her tier sister Lexington and Tier 9 USS Essex have, the Enterprise makes up for this with a powerful array of mixed medium and close-range anti-aircraft artillery, including 20mm Oricons and 40mm Bofors. This puts her AA rating between the Lexington and Essex. She has a good setup of the 40mm Bofors, both in quad and dual forms. This, coupled with defensive fire ability the Enterprise gets, allows her to handle well against most air attacks. Her defensive fire consumable lasts 120 seconds and will come in 2 charges if you get the premium. USS Enterprise currently seems to take her carrier air group setup similar to that of the historical loadout of Air Group 20. While having more planes than what Air Group 20 was historically given, this gives us a baseline in-game for what the Enterprise had mid to late 1944. While we currently do not have any unique options for night fighting, I feel we will not see the Grey Ghost in our CVN role. The Enterprise is a beautiful ship, and she handles very well for her size. I find her speed and her rudder shift to be good, and I ran the rudder shift module on my setup. One important option to note is that they gave Enterprise access to the Tier 9 upgrade modules. This means you can take the air group modifications too, which will boost the health pool of your dive and torpedo bombers by 15%. This boosts their HP up enough to make them comparable to the USS Essex, and thus has given the Big E a fighting chance in the higher tiers now. The interesting options come with the dive bombers. You now have options to take armor-piercing or high-explosive bombs. This gives you the ability to do great damage against battleships with AP or damage over time, and the ability to hurt cruisers and destroyers. If you go with the AP bombs, you do become vulnerable to cruisers and destroyers should they close the distance with you, as landing torpedoes are very difficult given the pattern, especially against destroyers. This being said, AP bombs are very RNG based. While you may get good hits, I have often found frustration while diving on a slow-moving battleship only to hit it for a few hundred points of damage, while other times I have dealt massive damage to unsuspecting victims and sometimes almost outright killing them. The Enterprise feels like a specialized battleship hunter, as Kalorn has put it. Kami Samurai feels she is able to help control the skies early on and then give a good fight late match. I feel she has limited strike planes though, so you have to keep that in mind throughout the whole match. Now with the addition of the Tier 9 modules, you more or less have to spend 3 million credits to make her capable of competing. I also recommend having a minimum 10-point captain starting off, as your opponents will often give you a stern challenge. I recommend this ship for the serious CV player, as she's not well forgiving. If you are a collector, I recommend learning and playing co-op and PvE matches to really get a feel for the carrier gameplay. Enterprise is a good ship with potential, you just really need to know what you're doing. So with all that said, let's get into this crazy replay that I had. Now getting into the match here, it was actually really fortunate that we were actually top tier. Most games that I've been with the Enterprise have not actually been top tier, so it's been a rare occasion to actually see tier 6 ships while in the match. Looking at the opposition though, there are some ships that could give me trouble. Now this replay was done kind of early on, and as such, you know, subject to change. I actually did not have the Tier 9 module in this replay, so you are going to see some differences in gameplay, comparatively so, from what you're going to see now. However, the fundamentals and mechanics are, I feel, are still more or less the same. With this particular build, I've got a 15-point CV captain from my USS Saipan that I'm running, and I am currently using the HE equipped dive bombers at the moment. So one of my strategies is early on, let's get a dive bomber out super quick, get it up there, get scouting, because the fighters do take a while to arm, fit, and get ready for takeoff. So I find that the time waiting for the fighters, you might as well let at least one dive bomber go, then kind of queue up everything else. Get some quick scouting information here, so we see what's going on with the enemy team. I am rather fortunate there is not crazy AA, but you will see, you know, kind of standard, mediocre, or slightly above average AA, and just how much they do against these planes. Now, again, this replay does not have the Tier 9 module for the additional hit points, so your experience is going to be a little different, but you are going to have to expect that your planes will get shot down. And this CV player got a couple good strafes on me. Still kind of getting with the carrier fighting, and particularly fighting with this carrier. I normally use Shikaku and the IGN carriers, so I'm a little different with the speed. One thing you notice that the Enterprise's planes are a bit lacking in speed. You are going to notice that the enemy is going to often outrun you, especially once they drop their ordnance. You often have no real chance of trying to catch up to them. Trying to get in quickly here just to do something. I probably should have pulled these torpedo bombers back, but I wanted to have some type of influence, especially while my fighters were kind of engaged and they weren't really paying attention with their fighters. And one thing you kind of have to do, kind of with other US carriers, is you do more or less have to drop right on top of your opponent. And that's just kind of one of the frustrating things. You know, coming from IGN carriers, you kind of have a little more leeway for your torpedo attacks. However, as you see, the the torpedo, the W-style torpedo drop pattern is really frustrating. You're lucky to land 2 to 3 torpedoes. If you land 2 to 3 torpedoes, that's good. I wouldn't really expect to land more unless you are a serious carrier ace and can somehow pull it off. There's been a couple times where I've landed 5 and 6, but it was really long battleships and they had to be turning out. And with so much speed that they just kind of took all the torpedoes. Got lucky here. Probably should have picked a different target in hindsight, but I wanted that cruiser gone with no chance of launching torpedoes or anything, though really that angle, yeah, hindsight, probably should have attacked a different target. Now, one of the things I've been experiencing, I have my fighters buffed to the max. I have my fighters completely upgraded as strong as I can make them. And I've gone against an air superiority Shikaku and also Shikaku players they've upgraded their fighters as well. And I've noticed that oftentimes they can get the upper hand if you are not careful. So you really have to be on top of your fighters and make sure that you know how to strafe and don't necessarily get caught up in one-on-ones or one-on-ones near enemy ships, because your fighters are going to lose out. And your fighters will struggle against an air superiority Lexington. So you really have to be mindful of your fighter control. Now this match, not looking good on our western flank, as that side is folding. And I've decided, I'm going to use the ease speed, and let's try and get up behind our fleet, get a little closer so I can quickly get planes in and out, faster sorties. And I was desperately hoping to catch this fighter group sleeping, but regretfully no. And you can kind of see that the planes are so slow compared to especially IGN. And regretfully not paying attention here, I'm going to lose those torpedoes. And that was a hard one to lose. You don't have many spares in the hangar. So right now I'm kind of hoping to draw them in. I do have all the carrier skills, if you will, including torpedo acceleration on this captain build. So I took the strike plane survivability. So once they drop their ordnance, they come back slower, but have more HP and more stealth. So I feel when you send in your attack, those planes remaining need to still stay alive. Even if they're coming back slower, I'd rather have planes alive than a hangar with no aircraft. Now here was definitely another mistake. I was trying to fend off those attack planes, desperately trying to save our cruiser, and I should have strafed these fighters. I thought I had more time, but my fighters just melted, and I come in with a late strafe and just very poor management on my part. Thankfully, I have more ammo than my opposing CV does, so their fighter groups are going to run out of ammo and have to bail. So I'm not going to lose that division there. And this is going to allow me to sortie some strike planes in and see if I can get this destroyer. It's kind of lurking there. I do not want anyone making a beeline towards our cap. So I've been trying to hold my strike planes in reserve to ward off anyone thinking about going for our base. I got really fortunate there on that Mahan. Getting in a good strike. A real frustrating thing is the turnaround on your fighters. You have to be mindful. I'm so used to IGN fighters and their ability to just quickly turn and get back out in the sky. Setting up on this Mogami, I went in a little too close, but again, one thing, the torpedoes are so slow, you've got to practically drop them right on top of them, and that pattern is so wide. You're lucky to get 2 or 3. And there is this Akatsuki that I have spotted heading towards our cap, so definitely going to play a serious role here. Recovering my strike aircraft, getting a fighter over this Akatsuki. I'm trying to spook it, trying to do anything possible. Also giving information to my team. We're down, and it's not looking good at the moment. And my Shiratsuyu is coming in to defend our cap. And thankfully, it's going to turn out good.
Group 6, ready. Group 3, awaiting instructions. Group 7, ready for takeoff. Group 3, awaiting instructions.
As I do get more fighters out there, I'm trying to be mindful of the group that is north, currently in their cap, while trying to give valuable information for our cap.
Group 6, maintaining present course. Group 2, standing by for instructions. Over. Group 3, standing by for instructions. Over.
And lurking in the fighters a little bit.
Group 7, airborne.
Thankfully, there's a good smoke screen for our battleships. Our division played pretty smart. Did the best they could. They definitely carried me. Not necessarily me carrying them. And I've got my fighters here to continue to give them scouting information to allow them to shoot from smoke. Shiratsuyu is engaging Akatsuki as it's been coming in and out of smoke. Warding off these dive bombers. And I have some dive bombers coming in, and it just lines up so perfectly, you know, trying to dodge those torpedoes. And oh my gosh, just missed. Barely missed. Keeping fighters there, as it is definitely... Oh, I got the Akatsuki to fire. It's always nice. Poor Akatsuki. Now this is where I start to get the upper hand on the fighter engagements. I have warmed up a little. I am kind of feeling this carrier player out as to what their style is and what they are doing. I'm trying to help my division mates out here on this Mogami coming in. Trying to line up the best strike possible. It just sometimes it is so difficult, and you can see the frustration with that drop pattern, how difficult it can be. Now I was dropping at a pretty poor angle on that tier bits, but I had to... That's the thing with these bombers, is they die so quickly. Excuse me, Bismarck, not tier bits. They die so quickly that sometimes you just get the torpedoes off, do whatever you can. And in my lack of multitasking ability, I did allow my division mate to regretfully die. And I should have been on top of that, and I'm so sorry. And it's definitely made the game a lot closer. Now we've kind of clawed our way back, but with just 3 ships and my other division mate going down, it's definitely not good. And now I have this Amagi closing in on me. Thankfully he does not know that I'm there, and I'm going to employ a little trickery here. I'm actually going to send my strike aircraft due south after striking to fool the enemy to think that I am way south and actually not over here. Getting a fortunate fire there, and that fire is actually going to play a huge role, as the addition of it and the torpedo bomber coming in and causing flooding. I know it's just 2, and you got to get just one torpedo. Checking our base. And this Amagi actually turned out, and the way that he turned out is definitely going to cause a hit. And that hit in the bow where the torpedo protection was lacking. And now you can see that they are flooding. They are flooding, and they already used their damage control party. So now I'm coming in, trying to finish off, and you can see the planes are just melting. Again, you have the tier 9 upgrade module. Your planes do survive a little bit better, but not by much. And as you can see, the fake out has caused the enemy carrier and enemy team to think that I am further south, which has bought me time to actually sink the Amagi, which will flood out, and get my fighters in a position to intercept their torpedo aircraft. The Amagi is down. Now it's just the Bismarck. And I'm trying to help my Shiratsuyu. Doing our best to harass and try and claw this game back. We have now taken the points lead. However, all it takes is one stray secondary shell on that Shiratsuyu and detonation. Coming in with the dive bombers, and gonna get really fortunate here and kind of take the kill. And the torpedo planes are finished.
Returning to ship. Group 3, target destroyed.
And now with just the enemy Shokaku left, this game has turned around and is now shown in our favor.
Group 5, maintaining present course.
Getting my planes to cover our Shiratsuyu and moving in. Just trying to finish up and kind of see where Shokaku is, just to make sure that really there's no chance of the enemy team now kind of stealing the victory from us. This was an intense match. Oh my god, it was... Jeez, it was so intense, so frustrating. I'm not a carrier pro, though I am getting better. The more I play carriers, the more I get comfortable with them. But there are definitely many carrier players out there that would not be making the mistakes that I made. So this ship Though it is fun, and yes, it's the Enterprise, you definitely need to have some carrier knowledge before playing this ship. If you don't, and you're a collector and you want this ship, do some PvE, do some practicing first. You really want to make sure you do that. So it was a pretty good game. Did over 100k. I'm proud of myself, being a mediocre carrier player, and given the match, the accomplishment and turning it around, especially when the enemy team thought that they had won it. Anyway, thank you so much everyone for watching. Thank you for enjoying this video, and I look forward to doing more content for you soon. Thank you.